Welcome to Melody Makers, where we discuss arranging and composing and meet the real melody makers behind the music of Melody's traditional music, folkharp.com, and Afghan press music for the harp. I'm Gretchen Monson, harpist, pianist, organist, and arranger, and your host for today. In today's episode, we have a special guest with us. Kathleen Blackwell-Plank is an advanced certified clinical musician with a passion for bringing harp music, as well as choral and violin music, to hospice settings. She has composed and arranged many simple and moving pieces that work especially well for harpists who share music as a form of therapy. Before we chat with Kathleen, let's get a taste of her beautiful work. This is Wren's Song, a Shetland lullaby. Good morning, Kathleen.
Hi, Gretchen. How are you?
I am very good. How about yourself?
Oh, good. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
Well, I'm delighted to be here.
So, what do you remember about the very first time you saw or heard a harp?
Well, what comes to mind most is back when I played with the Charlotte Symphony. I was a violinist, and I happened to sit very close to the harpist who was nestled in between the violins and the woodwind section. So if I was counting rests or out of my peripheral vision, I enjoyed hearing and seeing what the harpist was doing there on stage so close beside me.
Wow. All right. So then what influenced you to actually start taking harp and learn how to be harpist yourself?
Well, I was actually inspired by my mother-in-law, Joyce Plank, who is a wonderful musician. She is a pianist, but she decided to take up harp and also hammer dulcimer and a number of instruments in her middle age to early retirement years. And so when we would visit, I was introduced then to the lever harp and enjoyed hearing her play. And she also is a composer and arranger, so she was a real inspiration for me. And then in my work with hospice as a social worker, I also took additional training in what's called integrative medicine, things like aromatherapy and Reiki and comforting touch and music and art to help bring comfort to patients as well. So those factors all sort of came together, and I decided, well, I could learn to play harp too. So I, set about getting an instrument. I found a wonderful teacher, Helen Rifus, and launched into learning the harp, and then also taking the training for a therapeutic musician certification through the Harp for Healing program.
Wow. So did you find that your background in violin and any other instruments influenced how you interpret harp music and how you approach that?
Well, yes, I think my experience on violin really gave me an ear for beautiful melodies. Along the way, I had also gotten interested in Celtic music and old-time music, played the mandolin as well. And so that opened up the world to me of traditional folk music, starting, of course, with those Appalachian roots in the mountains of North Carolina, and then expanding further from there.
Oh, fantastic. So then share with us how your passion for social work and music therapy motivates you as a harpist.
Well, as a social worker with hospice, it was really the needs of my patients that drew me in to the value of providing music. Now, what I do is called therapeutic music. Only board certified music therapists do music therapy. Just to clarify that a little bit, music therapists have done a 4-year college degree or more and are board certified. But therapeutic musicians also have a training program, but it's a little different focus than the music therapy there. But then to circle back, so as a social worker, a lot of my time with patients was spent with them doing what's called life review, where they're remembering things of importance, throughout their life. And the music became very obvious in some of those patients' lives, things that they had shared with the spouse. And I guess when I first thought about the music, the patient had shared that he and his wife loved old-time music and used to go to fiddle conventions and things like that. And so then I decided to share, well, I'm a musician too. And of course, his first statement was, well, are you going to bring your instrument? And that began my thinking about how I could utilize music to the benefit of my patients.
Wow. So with the harp, then, was it a new door open to be able to bring in because we're a lot more people receptive to harp music over other types of music?
Well, harp is especially well suited for the bedside with hospice patients or in healthcare or other settings with patients. Harps, as you know, as a harpist, are very resonant. Those vibrations are very comforting to our bodies, not only to us as players, but to those who listen. And that close proximity brings that live music, to the bedside. And there's been a lot of research done to show the power of music to help relieve stress, to relieve pain, nausea, elevate mood, increase quality of life. So the harp is kind of number one best instrument to bring to the bedside. Other good ones, though, are those resonant string instruments, instruments that are not too loud, that are more intimate for that setting or well suited.
Yes. Wow. Describe to us, so if for somebody who's never heard of becoming a therapeutic musician, what kind of training and what does that look like?
Well, there are a number of different programs, and there's a national certification board that those programs are accredited through. And there's the Harp for Healing program, Music for Healing and Transition, bedside music, and then for a complete list, one would need to go to that national certification board site for that. But the kinds of training are in how to use music to respond to the changing needs of patients. For example, research has shown that slower tempo, like a resting heart rate tempo, is good for soothing and calming. And if you think about how many of us come to use music in our daily life, if you're a parent, it's singing that lullaby to a child, which tends to be at that slower pace to calm and soothe. But the training goes on to how to utilize modes, the different use of rhythm patterns, types of music and genres, because research does show that the most therapeutic music is the music of choice of the patient. In other words, what they like from their culture or their personal experience.
Wow. And how long does that program usually take?
Well, I think they're usually fairly self-paced with that, so depending on the situation and circumstance of the person involved, but it does involve different coursework, a practicum on, in a hospice site or in other healthcare sites, and supervision. There's an exam and recordings and things like that.
Oh,
and then
okay.
there's ongoing continuing education required each year to maintain one's certification.
Got it. So then share a couple of your favorite moments from your work as a harpist in hospitals, nursing homes, hospice.
Well, one of the most touching, I think, was a patient whose mother had Alzheimer's disease, very advanced, the end stage, where the patient was no longer very communicative and was growing near to death. And the daughter asked me, could I play Waltzing Matilda? Which sort of surprised me. It wasn't a tune I was expecting. But she went on to explain that when she was a little girl, her mother would hold her in her arms and sing Waltzing Matilda, so that she was holding her mother.
Wow.
As we played and she sang.
Oh, that was so sweet. Wow. So for somebody looking to break into that and to get involved, how would you say, what would the first step be other than getting your certification?
Well, I've seen, I don't know if you've experienced this, but I think a lot of people come to lever harp as a second instrument or something that they do take up as an adult, which can be a challenge to learn a new and very different instrument, which for me, harp was very different from violin. You know, whole different techniques. You, of course, bring your music knowledge, but I think one of the key ingredients is finding a wonderful harp teacher, which I did with Helen Reifus. And she not only helped me with harp technique, which is, of course, totally different from violin technique, but to understand the different arranging for harp. It's different from piano arranging, different voicing of chords which lend themselves to the harp, and also each instrument has its own special techniques or styles that are kind of unique to the instrument, and she was very instrumental in helping me understand the special things that I can do on the harp that can't be done on another instrument.
Oh, fantastic. So you mentioned that your harp teacher kind of introduced you to the idea of the arrangement for harp and how that works. So what was the driving factor behind your first arrangement?
Well, after I completed my training as a therapeutic musician, I started an interlude choir at hospice and a harp circle, two separate groups. And with the choir, there was the inspiration of the Hollowell Choir with the Brattleboro Borough Hospice in Vermont with Peter Amadon, who were one of the first hospice choirs established. So they had pulled together kind of a repertoire of music. Another real leader in the kind of hospice singing group was Kate Munger, who established the Threshold choirs, which are nationwide now. So also they had developed a repertoire of music. But with the harp circle, I felt like I needed to start arranging music for us to play that was appropriate to our hospice setting. So I started arranging lullabies, love songs, laments, waltzes, and other folk tunes. And that took me off in a wonderful research exploration of the wealth of traditional music out there that's in the public domain. Also, at hospice at that time, we had a large map of the world on a bulletin board, and they had put push pins in for all the places our patients had come from. Because our hospice, even though in a relatively rural county near a big metropolitan area, it was astounding all the different places that our patients came from and came to us. So also looking back to the cultural heritage of music that would be comforting and soothing to those patients.
Yes, and you have such a diverse library of music from all sorts of different cultures, traditions, lullabies, songs, some for voice and harp. Do you sing?
Well, in my younger days, I sang more than I do now. But I do enjoy the work so much with our interlude choir. And on occasions, we bring together the harps and the voices. So a lot of times, I do include the lyrics, vocal lines, so that optional voice can be used with that. One of the videos that will be sharing with you is an original composition of mine called Pisgah Sleeps, which is after the Pisgah Forest in the Appalachian Mountains of North Carolina, a favorite spot of mine. And that one I did set a poem that I wrote, lyrics to the melody that I composed. And one of our singers kindly did a version, Jean Cadella, of it with Pisgah Sleeps with harp and voice. So there's a version with just harp, which is just fine, and then the version with the voice as well.
Fantastic. I'm looking forward to hearing that version. Wow. Is that such a beautiful piece? So when you approach making a composition, how is that different? And how do you just start off making melodies from scratch?
That's a good question. It comes with inspiration, I guess. When I'm choosing a folk tune, I search through until I find the melodies that I love that speak to me personally. And I guess when I'm composing a melody of my own, I'm kind of exploring in that same way. So I sit on the harp bench at the harp with some staff paper out there to scribble little notes and just start experimenting and exploring. And of course, once I have that melody, then the next step is to then decide how I want to harmonize it and explore those different options. You usually have several choices within the chord progressions, but to capture the one that creates the mood that I want to do.
Wow. And then you have other hobbies outside of harp playing. Elaborate on those a little bit.
Well, art is one of those, and gardening, and I love nature. So that my most recent composition, Song of the Wren, a Celtic suite, and that one is based on 4 different Celtic tunes that include the bird, the wren. And 2 of the movements are Irish polka. One is a Breton andro, which is like a circle dance, and one is a Shetland lullaby, and they all have wren in the title. So that after I composed this suite, then I decided in making the videos that instead of using my nature photography that I usually use with the videos, that I would use paintings of wrens instead. And so that's launched me into a big research project on where wrens live, what plants they like, how they build their nest, so that these paintings are authentic to the life experiences of wrens and will accompany these videos.
Wow, how special is that? Well, thank you for sharing your harp journey with us, Kathleen. All of Kathleen's pieces are available on melodies at folkharp.com. See the links in the description. To close, we have another recording, Pisgah Sleeps, Kathleen's original composition for voice and harp, featuring singer Jean Cadella. Thank you for listening today. If you liked this episode, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more content like this. Share the Melody Makers podcast with your family, friends, and any clinical musicians or want to be clinical musicians you know. On behalf of Melody's traditional music and Afghan press music for the harp, this is Gretchen Monson, wishing you a joyful, music-filled day.